Hello, this is Gerardo Dada again with lesson 3 of the Media Bistro product marketing course. Today we're going to talk about segmentation, targeting, and positioning. By now you should have completed the product marketing role on lesson 1. You should know about customer market knowledge. You should have a good understanding of your competition and how the market is organized. Think about how you're going to get feedback from customers. Now we're going to focus on how do we use that knowledge that we gained in lesson 2 to build an effective customer segmentation model, targeting and positioning. During this session, you will learn what are the types of segmentation that are available, how personas can be used, how to make them effective, what are the differences between segmentation, targeting, and positioning, and learn the business value of using targets and how to write an effective positioning statement that will make your life easier throughout the marketing process. Let's start with why it's important to do segmentation and targeting. The first thing is that you cannot go after all the market segments and customers. Every company has limited resources, no matter how big you are. I worked at a Fortune 50 company and we still use segmentation and targeting. Even if you have millions of dollars in budget, there are multiple ways to use that budget in a more focused way. Also, it's important to acknowledge that your product is not going to be just as good for all your customers, meaning not all your customers are going to be equal. By doing the segmentation work, you will have a better understanding of your customers, what they want, and you will understand how every product has different value for different customers, meaning there are going to be some customers that appreciate it more, some customers that will be willing to pay more for the product, and in some cases it might not be more value or less value, it might be just different value, meaning customers have different lenses, different ways of looking at things, different needs. So the same product, same value might have just different value to different customers. We'll explore that in a moment. And last, it's about relevance. The more that you connect your product with the market needs and with how each customer thinks, the product's going to be more contextually relevant for them. It's going to be more useful for them. It's going to be less about your product and about how you can solve their problems. So you're really using segmentation and targeting to align your products and services with the right customers and the needs and the reasons why they want to buy your products and services. There's this thinking that every product has a job to do. So segmentation forces you to think, what is the job that my customers are hiring my product to do? Let's go to the next slide. And without these tools, your marketing will be just plain vanilla. It's a shotgun approach. It's going to be very plain. Usually becomes very feature centric, very product centric, and not aligned with customers. We talked about these definitions in the past: segments, market, niche. What is a target market? What's a buyer profile? And what's a persona? Let's spend more time making this real. There are 4 types of segmentation. The first type of segmentation is the easiest one, but also probably the less useful. It's about demographics. It's when you take into account age, gender, income, geographic location, their role or their position, either within a company or within a family, or their basic profile information. This is attractive because usually you can get this information from lists, from databases, or in many other cases by just looking at your database. What makes it challenging is that if you think about targeting and segmentation as a function of how to make your product more relevant for those customers, oftentimes demographic information is not enough or is not rich enough to show us what are the right target segments. You'll see in the next 3 types of segments how they're more useful. By the way, there's not one law of how segmentation needs to be done. There's many ways of segmenting. If you look online, there are authors that offer many ways of doing segmentation. I try to compress into 4 ways of segmentation that I think make more sense to me, and the ones that I've used that are more useful in my professional experience. This can be used in B2B or B2C just as well. Behavioral segmentation can be very powerful. It's very interesting because it focuses on how customers buy, their buying behavior, how they buy, their predisposition towards buying. In this case, we're showing a chart that is used in the way that to explain how customers have different behaviors based on how they adopt new technologies or new products. But there are some customers that are futurists. They want to have the latest things out there in the market. It can be the latest sneakers, or it can be a B2B company that likes to use the most advanced technology to gain a competitive advantage. Then there are companies who believe, or people who believe in transformation, meaning they're going to wait until the future is already showed the way, and they're going to adopt technology later. Then you have the pragmatists who are going to wait until the technology or the products become mainstream. They're followers. And then there are laggers, people whose purchase behavior is about, I'm going to stay with what I know and what I've trusted, even if the majority is already using something else. It's very interesting to see how this chart, we've lived it multiple times in the adoption of Blu-ray. For example, there are some customers who are futurists and bought the Blu-ray players as soon as they came out. They were the ones paying sometimes even thousands of dollars for those Blu-ray players. In transformation, those were the ones who really like their movies at home, but they're not really willing to risk using a technology that might or might not catch up. And then the pragmatist is where I think the majority of people are using Blu-rays, and there's still people who use DVDs or may still just be watching movies on movie theaters and on TV. So this is just one way of explaining different buying behaviors based on new things that come out. You can also map your customers using segmentation based on how often they buy from you, for example. Customers who are repeat buyers, customers who just bought the first time in the last few months, or customers who you have in a database for some reason and they've never bought from you. Their usage rate might be also another predictor of their behavior. There might be customers who already purchased from you, but they're not using your product or your services. If you look at a gym, for example, that might be a very good way of segmenting customers by behaviors. You might have gym members that have tremendous usage and are showing up at the gym every single day. They're going to be very different customers than those that show up only once a week on Saturdays. And they're going to be very different users from those that paid for the gym membership up front at the beginning of the year and they have not renewed, but they have not used it either. So each one of those trees is going to look for something different in your gym, even though they might be paying the same amount of money. And each one of them might need a very different marketing tactic. And they buy for a different reason, right? The ones who are bought and they haven't used the gym, they clearly want to change something in their life. They haven't been able to do that. And they're the ones that are at risk of not renewing their membership next year. So you will do different marketing tactics with them than those who are steady users of your product. Then there is the attitudinal. This is a psychographic. The way you do attitudinal segmentation typically involves hiring somebody to do a market research in the sense of a survey. You survey probably 1,000 of your customers or a couple thousand. You send out the survey to a couple thousand people, and then you ask a number of questions about their lifestyle, their personality. You get the information back and you cluster them based on groups. You plot them on a chart and you hope that those clusters become evident. This can be very powerful, but at the same time could be tricky for two reasons. One, it assumes that the clusters of people, because of certain attitude that you've been able to measure, they're really different type of customers and they have different needs, where it might not be the case. The second challenge is all the biases we talked about in the market research section about the type of list you get and the type of questions you're making. So you might have a great process to segment customers, but if you don't ask the right questions, you will be getting data that might not be useful, or it might even be misleading. On the other side, it can be powerful. So you're looking for their lifestyle and personality. Hobbyist, advanced, and material professional. If you think about people who buy cameras, they're photographers. They can be categorized in different ways. Even if you don't have any data about their usage or their buying behavior, right? Maybe these are people who buy a camera every year, and if they're a professional, they're going to be very different than an advanced amateur. If you're dealing with people also in terms of how they behave outside of your product a little bit, so soccer mom is different than a diva, different than a working professional, and so on, and their own personality. Are you compulsive, extrovert, ambitious, etc.? So there are many ways of looking at the attitude of people, at their psychology, at their personality and lifestyle. You just need to think about what are those clusters, what would make sense, come up with a hypothesis, and use that as a basis to build some market research. The last one is called needs-based, and this is probably the most powerful of the four, at least in my experience. Because often when you're looking at demographic data, behavioral data, and segments based on attitude, what you're looking for is what does this customer want? What do they need from a product or service like mine? So using the same gym example, you might say, well, I want a gym that has the most complete equipment because I exercise every day. Or maybe you're looking for a professional who just tries to stay in shape, and that person just needs a convenient gym for the weekends with the most basic machines that are needed based on his routine. You might have somebody who is trying to lose weight, and they will have very different needs, even if their attitudes or behaviors look the same, and even if their demographic look the same. So if you're buying a car, you might need to transport 9 kids to school. Very different need than being a single person who just wants to get to work, or being a person that just wants to flaunt your money by having an expensive car. The needs base also allows you to show what the intention is when their purchase is, right? So are you buying this car because you enjoy driving, because you want to express your individuality and your style, or because you just think this is a very well engineered car? And you might have 3 customers in the same age segments with the same behavior, the same buying attitude, but they're buying it for 3 different reasons. You might be buying products because you want to save money, because you want to save the environment. So basically, it's needs-based segmentation is about getting into the mind of your customer and understanding why they want to buy a product. And this is the most challenging one because it's difficult to be observed. As we talked in the previous lesson, it's difficult to understand what customers are thinking versus what customers are doing. And the only way to do this is by talking to customers, by doing that personal level of market research that involves talking to customers and asking them the right questions, asking them, why do you buy this product? What are the things that you considered? What are the other categories of products that you eliminated from your shopping list, and so on? Other questions we talked about. So 4 ways of segmenting customers. Each one has its own value. Some of them are easier to do. They're not mutually exclusive, so you might do all 4 of types of customer segmentation for your company or for your project, and determine that one is more useful than the other. At the end, it comes down to common sense and what makes more sense for your product. Let's use a bank as an example, right? So their banks are often billion-dollar companies that have huge marketing budgets in the tens of millions of dollars. It's easy just to open most publications or watch TV for some time. You'll see that banks do spend a lot of money on TV and on marketing in general. And it's actually funny that it's a cliche that banks will offer a free toaster when you sign up. And still, it is the type of marketing you see all the time. So the marketing is about the product, as you can see in this quote. We have a great savings checking account and we have an ATM card for you. And that only speaks about the product and what the word we, right? So we have a savings checking account and it's an ATM card. And yes, it's for you because we want you to buy it, but it's really describing what the company offers, not the buyer. So imagine you find out that there are 3 main types of customers. The first one could be high school kids that are they just need to start saving. They never had a credit card in the past. They want to build a credit score. That's what they want to do as well. It's important for them. So that's kind of the needs-based segmentation. And if you look into their emotions, they want to feel special because now they're big people. They have a physical car and they're taking care of their own life and they're becoming financially independent. The second category can be college-bound students who need the convenience of an ATM, so locations are going to be more important for them. They are going to be receiving money from their parents, so money transfer is going to be useful, and they need help in financial planning. The emotional need is, I have limited budget, I get only so much money from my parents, I have a limited amount of money from my own, and I need to be really smart about how I am spending my money, setting myself limits, building discipline, and controlling my expenses. Very, very different need than even the high school kid that was this person just a few years ago. So their needs change. And let's think about it as a different segment. Families who are relocating to a different city. So they're going to be looking for a bank that is convenient for them. So they have branches in proximity to their new home. And they might be looking for more services that they didn't have in the past. Or, I mean, mortgage is a logical one, but they assuming that they already moved. But the new services might be attractive for them. These families are usually busy and have kids and are busy with their relocation. So simplicity and how to save time is going to be very important. So the bottom line here is we have a single product that a company is trying to market as a checking account, savings account with an ATM card, very product centric. They might be offering even, we'll rebate you the ATM fees. And if you look at the list of needs and emotional needs, it's not that that's not attractive for anybody. I mean, I'm sure that no one wants to pay ATM fees. We can assume that most of these segment customers will use an ATM and will prefer a card that doesn't have any fees, but it's not in the list of most important things that these customers are looking for. So now imagine you're the marketing manager for this bank, and you have this information, and you know exactly what percentage of your target customers, the ones you're going after, are high school kids versus college-bound students versus families who are relocating, and then you assign a marketing budget to each one of them. Would the information about their needs and their emotional need and the knowledge about having 3 different customer segments be useful for you? What would you do differently? I think it's extremely powerful. Let's talk about personas now. Personas is a next step in making it powerful or simple to market to a customer, because oftentimes product marketing creates the segmentation, and now it has to kind of pass the baton to other people in marketing, be marketing managers, marketing communication, demand generation, lead marketing, field marketing, marketing in other countries, and so on. So personas is a way to help other people in marketing understand those customer segments by making them more personal, by picking an individual. And in this case, I chose a picture. It was just clip art. In some cases, you might want to take a picture of an actual customer if the picture actually reflects. You might want to call it the stereotype of your target segment. Come up with a name, and you make some assessments of what are the things that are the characteristics of this person that are going to make them more come alive to the rest of the marketing organization. Kate lives in a limited budget. They're funded by their parents, and this might be a no-brainer for you, but you might have marketing people who have come from other countries, and the budgets and how students live in other countries and the culture for other countries and how students go about college is very different from what you see in the United States. So part of the challenge of segmentation and marketing and persona building is that oftentimes we don't know what we don't know, and we assume that our knowledge is shared with everybody else. And if you've been marketing to college students for your entire life, it becomes too logical for you. It becomes a no-brainer. The challenge is, how do you explain the things that you know, and it's hard for you to imagine anybody who doesn't have that knowledge through a persona. And the persona is a tool to make that happen. So they spend a lot of time with friends or listening to music, so that shows you a lot of their main activities, and they own a smartphone, a laptop, and a tablet, so very technologically savvy. They use Instagram. They don't use Facebook and Twitter. By the way, this is, I think, a trend that I'm seeing in kids nowadays. But this is important if you are building social media marketing plan, right? If you focus on Twitter or Facebook, this might be the wrong tactic. They're familiar with some names, so this tells you what is their brand familiarity, what are the first names that come to mind when you tell them about, hey, what are you thinking about getting a checking account or an ATM card? And they're concerned about fees. So in this case, this person is concerned about fees. So the persona represents our target segment buyer profile. And the goal is to keep it simple so that people will read this. I've seen persona documents that are multiple pages. Unlikely that a marketing manager is going to read multiple pages for each persona. And remember that it needs to be relevant, meaning every one of those items either needs to make the person come alive or needs to be useful in deciding what marketing tactics to execute. You just can't put all the information you have about that person. For example, where they shop for clothing. If you're a bank, if you decide that something is not relevant, just delete it from persona. You can still capture that information in some other place in your marketing research, marketing segmentation folder, but just don't use it as part of the personas you want to share. Personas need to be concise. In some cases, I've seen posters that show the typical 4 personas you're going after, or cards, so that people can post them in their cubicles and have them visible in their office, so that your target customer, who you're selling to, who you're trying to win, and what do they look like, becomes part of the daily life and something that is extremely visible in a company. Usually, I would recommend 2 to 5 personas. If you have more, it becomes very difficult. And last, the personas can be used in ways that become part of the marketing lingo. So imagine somebody says, hey, why don't we put in the copy that we're not going to charge any ATM fees? Then somebody else in marketing might say, well, how would Kate feel about that? Alluding to the persona, which you're really alluding to this college student market segment as a whole. But when you say, how would Kate feel about this messaging? Would it be attractive to her or not? It makes it very, very easy to put yourself in her shoes and think about the messaging is going to resonate or not, or if there's some other messaging or some other marketing tactic that might be useful in targeting that customer segment. Let's look at some examples. These are 2 companies in extremes. So the first one, I was looking for a new printer this past week, and I went to the Epson website and I saw this messaging very clearly outlined for me. Are you a business? Because we have workforce printers for you. Are you a homeowner? Because we have expression printers for you. Or you're a creative professional that really cares about the picture quality, and we have photo printers for you. This is what I would call externally visible segmentation. It's very easy for me as a person who's looking for a printer for my home, and I'm not really interested in super high print quality at this point, at least not in my printer. I clicked on the one in the middle. So I basically told Epson what market segment I belong to, and that allowed Epson to give me a very short list of printers that were designed exactly for people like me, with the features that I cared about. Note that there might be some printers in there that might also be useful for the other customer segments, but they might just be presented with different value propositions to me. At the same time, I went to HP.com and other companies, and they asked me to choose between product lines. Do you want the Super Phaser line, or you want the Office Jet line? So I don't know, I'm just kind of looking for a printer for my home. How would I know which line of printers do you want me to select? So it made my buying experience so much harder in those other websites to determine which printers were useful for me and which ones I should spend time doing research online. By the way, I ended up buying an Epson printer. It could have been that they had the best printer for my needs, or it could have been that emotionally I connected more with Epson and ended up doing an emotional decision subconsciously, and look at the features and specs as a rational way to justify that decision. The second example here is Forrester Research. Forrester Research is definitely a B2B company. They sell to large organizations that are trying to make business decisions and to marketing professionals. So if you can see down here, the first thing that they tell you when they land on the website is, okay, you landed on the Forrester Research website. Here's what we do. We do research that helps you make better decisions, basically, in a world where technology changes a lot. But before we tell you about specifically our products or services, before we tell you about our weekly specials or about discounts or the parts we want to tell you, we want to learn from you first. The first thing we want you to do as our visitor to our website is to tell us, are you a marketing professional that is trying to sell products to business technology professionals? Or are you a business technology professional trying to make a buying decision on certain technology? And once you've chosen which one of those two you are, please tell us more about your specific role in that company. So look at the discipline of a company like Forrester Research. Again, it's not about their products. It's about understanding the customers first and capturing them in 2 broad market segments that are extremely different from them. They're both clients, they both pay the money, they're both important for the company, but it's critical for them to understand which one of those 2 you are. And then within each one of those 2, you have multiple customer segments. So tell me which type of technology you're trying to buy if you're on the right, or which what is your role in a technology business, in a technology group inside a company, or What kind of marketer are you? Are you in sales enablement? Are you in analyst relations? Are you a chief marketing officer? And then the company will tweak their website to show you only the services and products that they offer that are more relevant to you in that specific role. Brilliant. So now let's talk about positioning. Positioning is a fantastic topic. In fact, when I was in middle school, I read my first book on positioning, which is Al Rice and Jack Trout's book on, it's called Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind. And after reading that book, that's when I decided I want to be a marketer. And that's what I've been focusing on professionally since that day. So positioning is about an idea that you identify with a brand, meaning every brand is going to occupy a single position in your mind. Every brand will have a word that they will own. So I use this example because it's easy. Everybody who thinks about Volvo cars, some people might think they're boxy, some people might think they're antiquated, some people might like the new styling they have, people might know they're Swedish, some might think they're very reliable, some might like how they drive, some might think they're expensive, some might think they're not for them. But everybody who knows anything about Volvo will say Volvo is a safe car. So Volvo owns the word safe. People in their mind think that Volvo is safe. It's that connection between one single word and Volvo. And it's only in your mind. And it's very important to highlight this is in the customer's mind, not in the marketer's mind. So what brand position you want to have, your desired brand position, is very different from the actual brand position in many cases. It's also important to say that the positioning itself are all the activities to influence the position that your brand has in the marketplace. And in the marketplace, I mean in the collective minds of all your customers. Positioning happens in the mind of your customer. It's a thing that happens in their mind, meaning it's not something that they often might not be aware of. It's not something that is observed, and it's only in the side of the customer. There's only one position for each idea or brand. And the reason that there's only one idea is because our minds are simple. And it's like when you learn reading, you associate an idea with a word. You associate an idea with a verbal expression. And it's not different from brands in that perspective. The notes that I put here about giving up are very important. If Volvo wants to market performance for the cars, or affordability, or resale value, or any of those attributes, they're going to be basically eroding the position that they already earned in the customer's mind over decades. And at some point that might be the right decision for the company. I think it's been very interesting to see companies like Cadillac, how they shifted their position in the marketplace. It took them many years. It took them millions of dollars, and it took them also becoming a different company, meaning they had to offer different products to change the meaning of the brand. But in general, Volvo needs to acknowledge that their marketing and their essence of the company needs to circle around safe. And yes, that doesn't mean that they cannot talk about other things. That's when you have a brand and a positioning hierarchy. You lead with a safe message, and then you have other attributes that support that safe message. Let's use another example. BMW is one that I really like. The company has been using the ultimate driving machine as their slogan and their brand essence for 14 years. It's a single idea they want to earn in the customers' minds. And they successfully done so. Everybody thinks about BMW, want to think it's a fun car to drive. That's what they want people to think about. So you might want to say it's fun. It could be the attribute that goes next to the brand. In some cases, it doesn't have to be a word in the sense that languages might not be perfect in describing an idea. As long as it's a very concise idea, you might need multiple words to describe it. So the ultimate driving machine is not a bad position for BMW. The important point is that throughout BMW marketing, yes, they need to talk about economy and about the prices and about the quality of engineering and about the resale value, but the single most important idea, everything needs to again point back to the ultimate driving machine, and that's how the company has been successful for so many years. The meaning needs to be unique, relevant, and meaningful. Meaning, if you were to launch another car company today and you want to be safe, you're not unique. It's going to be really hard for customers to think about the Volvo is safe, but also this other company is also safe. Meaning, if you're not unique, positioning is not going to be useful. And this sounds like a no-brainer right now, but you just look at the marketing that's being done out there and you'll see how so many companies want to go after the same brand position. Second is to be relevant and meaningful. Meaning, if customers don't care about safe, then having Volvo's positioning as safety, it will be useless. However, they know that if you're a person who's buying a car for your family, for your wife and your kids, safety is pretty high on your list, right? Do you care that the car is a little bit more expensive? If it's going to keep them safe, let's put up some extra money. You might have seen those Michelin tire ads that had a baby in the center of the tire sitting to showcase that, yes, you might be paying more money for a Michelin, but what's at stake here is your babies. It's your family. The tire is protecting your baby. Are you gonna save? You wanna go cheap and save $50 to go on tires that might cause an accident? That's very emotional marketing done in a very tactful way. And last, needs to be not only relevant and meaningful, but also people should pay for it. There's a difference between saying, yeah, that's a nice attribute for a car. It's very different from an attribute that people say, I'm willing to pay more for that, and that's one of my main buying criteria. So if you ask 50 people on the street, when you're thinking about your next car, what are you going to be thinking about? They might tell you about cost, and they might tell you about other things. They might not necessarily offer the idea of safety. Again, using the same example, people who are buying cars for their family. But if you ask, is safety important? They might tell you yes. So it might not be in their conscious list of things that they're gonna use to select a purchase or a car company. There might be subconscious, but it's definitely important. It's definitely something that people will be willing to pay more money for. And if your current position in the market doesn't meet that criteria, you might want to look for another position. It's not too late. Positioning is relative to the competition, meaning Volvo cars are safe only in relation to other transportation methods. Doesn't need to be also other cars. So Volvo might talk about their structural rigidity of their chassis or their airbags or their braking, but people are still going to be comparing how safe is it to drive a Volvo than to take a taxi, for example. So the position in the mind of customers, it's always in relation to other competitors and other options in the marketplace. And positioning is strategy, meaning if Volvo chose their product to that position of being safe, it cannot be something that the marketing department does on its own. Unless R&D spends a significant amount of their budget doing the things that are going to make the car safer, and unless everybody in the dealership and the salespeople and the engineers and everybody in the company is aligned behind the idea of safety, then it's only marketing words and it's going to be useless. That's why positioning strategy. And with that, I want to come to this idea of what are the strategies that companies can use? What are the most basic positions that customers can take in their marketplace? So there's this author called Fred Wordsma who wrote a book called The Discipline of Market Leaders that I'm a really big fan of. And his argument is that there are three basic positions that a brand could occupy, or basically, he actually didn't describe it in terms of marketing strategy. He said this is the business strategy. So the first one is product leadership. Well, familiar with Apple, they're focused exclusively on focusing on high-end technology products. Mercedes-Benz, very similar position. Nespresso, if you're not familiar with them, they're coffee machines, spot machines. If you look at the competition for Nespresso, then there's the Keurig machines that are usually about $80. Then there's the Tassimo that are a little bit better, that are about 120. And Nespresso machines are around $300 to $500. So clearly their position is, we're going to build the best coffee machines out there, even if they are expensive. And as you can see in this slide, those three companies need to make significant investments in research and development. They're going to be looking for those early adopters. Their marketing strategy is going to be, and their business strategy is going to be, we're going to look for very, very large margins. So every time we sell a car or a computer or a coffee machine, we want to make a couple $100 of profit, versus other companies that might be making dollars of profit. And because they're going to be in at least in most markets, there are going to be fewer buyers. There's going to be a segment of buyers who's willing to pay more money for a product leading company is going to be smaller than the mass market that's going to be looking for price. Is going to be, then you're going to be looking at margins over share. Market share is not going to be important. When Apple has a dominant market share, like in the case of iPhones nowadays, it is not a leading product in the sense of it's not a high-end product anymore. The slogan they used to have before about think different is not valid anymore when most people in the streets are using an iPhone, at least in the United States. If everybody drove a Mercedes, then it wouldn't become a leading product, and the emotional reasons especially for people to buy a Mercedes will probably go away. So the strategy, as you can see, R&D investment, the customer segment you're going after, how you're going to measure success as a company, the business strategy needs to be tied together with the market positioning strategy. So if you're a marketing leader, you might be able to influence the company strategy. If that's not up in the table, then you need to take into account your business strategy to influence the product position you want to occupy in customers' minds. The second one is customer intimacy. Ritz-Carlton, Lexus cars, Harrah's casinos, they are all about understanding customers and making the customer experience phenomenal. In many cases, they're also more expensive than the mass market, but the reason why they're successful in the market is because they know more about their customers. They can personalize the experience. This is an area where marketers can play a bigger role in the sense of you can capture data about your customers, you can build relationship programs, you can focus on loyalty. There are hotels, when you come back, they know exactly what kind of pillows you want. If you go buy a Lexus, they'll have somebody show up on your car and pick up your car to get it to service. I don't know that. I haven't had that experience. I've never bought a Lexus, but that's what I've heard. Harrah's Casino mines the data of thousands and thousands of customers. They're not the most expensive casino. They're not going for the high price. So it's a little bit tricky in that sense that customer intimacy doesn't always mean you're going to go for a higher price. It's really about what is the business strategy to offer more value than just a plain vanilla product for the customer. In the case of Harrah's, they spend a lot of money in their marketing department understanding their customers to do some of the best relationship marketing that is available or that you can see in companies. And last, operational excellence. There are companies like Dell and McDonald's and others that focus on process and metrics to drive maximum efficiency. And so those companies are going to be offering you the lowest price. The only way McDonald's can offer a $1 hamburger is if they have a supply chain that is phenomenally orchestrated and have incredible processes and tons of metrics. And if you ask anybody who worked at Dell, there's an incredible focus on metrics, on business metrics in every single department. So marketers typically will focus on ROI and efficiency and what is your customer acquisition cost, lowering those customer acquisition costs because you're going to be looking for a product that's mostly the same. And typically these companies go after lower price. Note that these are three very large buckets on how to categorize business strategy that influence marketing positioning. They're not the only ones by far. There are many ways to position a product even within a market. So going back to the example of safety is not here with Volvo, right? That is a market-specific customer segment. The positioning that you might want to earn in your market might not even exist today. So this is only a tool to help you understand how a business strategy is very tied to marketing position, and B, what are the three most common business strategies that influence product positioning. Differentiation is building your business on a strategy to target a specific type of buyer. So that last point is about the type of strategy that your company chooses, and that marketing strategy to use positioning and to be different from other companies is going to mean that you're going to be targeting a different type of buyer. So the customer who's looking for a Mercedes, very different from the customer who might be looking for McDonald's, very different from the customer that's looking for La Quinta hotels is going to be very different for those staying at Ritz-Carlton. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It doesn't necessarily mean that one is willing to pay more money from the other. It might mostly mean that there are different customer segments that appreciate different things in a company. All right, let's look at the next step, which is messaging. You've done your research, you understood segments, you built a position for your product, you know what product you want. Here's how most marketing departments work in my observation. This is not statistically valid, this is just what I've observed and what I've heard from talking to other marketers or colleagues across industries. There are multiple marketing deliverables on the top. The website, press releases, collateral, etc. And each one of them requires work. So marketers spend time building the copy for the website, then they are working with maybe a different team to work on the collateral, and they build the messaging for that, and then they go work with an agency in advertising. This is very time consuming because the positioning and all the essence of what you're trying to communicate needs to be the same, because all those tactics at the top are just channels to communicate to the same customer. If you're going to that college student, you're hoping that they come to the website, you're hoping that they will listen to your advertising, you're hoping that they will somehow read about something you said in your press release in the news, etc. So it's the same buyer. It should be the same message. What's happening is that we're doing work over and over again. What is missing is a messaging document. So good marketers capture their positioning and their value prop and all the knowledge they have and how they're going to target personas via messaging document. You might have a messaging document for your entire company. You might have a messaging document for your product. You might have a messaging document for each one of your customer segments. A messaging document should be short, meaning 1 to 3 pages at the most, depending on how many messaging documents you have, how sophisticated your buyers are, and so on. The first step in a positioning document is having a positioning statement, which means for these types of customers who have this specific need, our brand is whatever positioning is, that offers this benefits because of, and then I have some proof points. So for example, if you are using the same example as the bank, for college students who are going to the first year of college, who are looking for convenience and to build financial discipline, our bank, Bank X, is the most convenient bank for college students, that's your position, that offers free ATM cards and multiple locations and financial planning tools because of, and then you list other things that prove that we have 400 ATMs near every major campus, or we have 20 financial modeling tools and mobile applications to help you control your finances and alerts. You get text messages when you're getting above your spending limits that you set for yourself, and so on. So those are your proof points. Then you have a more in-depth discussion or description of your target customer. Typically, you will write 25-word description, 50-word description, 100-word description, 300-word description. So basically, you describe your product in a very concise way in a set number of words, knowing that maybe for the press release you use a 25-word description, maybe in the advertising you're going to need a 10-word description, but maybe in your collateral you're looking for a 100-word description. So you have all those wordings built at once so that you don't have to think about them when marketing teams trying to implement different marketing tactics. They're already done. And sure, they can be tweaked, they can be adjusted, but for the most part that work is done. And what it gives you a ton of consistency across marketing execution channels, because they're going to be using the same descriptions that you've already wrote, and they're going to be tied to the positioning statement you want, and you might even have them approved by legal so they don't have to worry about that step. You've already made sure that there are no typos and the grammar flows and that they're concise and all those things. And in some cases, very importantly, they actually force you to think. When you're writing those 25-word descriptions, 50-word descriptions, 300-word descriptions, it forces you as a product marketing person to think about what is really the value you're offering customers. How can I say this in a very concise way if I only have 25 words? In fact, I would imagine that the modern messaging document is going to have 140-word description so you can put it on Twitter. And as you know, anytime you put something on Twitter, you actually have to spend some time thinking about how do I make this message pure, go back to the essence, so it actually fits in 140 characters. The Twitter is not going to give you an extension. And that work of force fitting your message into a limited number of words or characters actually helps you as a marketer understand what is the essence of your message that you want to communicate. Last, you have customer needs. You usually have three main needs that this person has, and I think in this example we talked about convenience, financial planning, and limited fees, or not very expensive. You explain that need. You explain what is the benefit of your product or service for customers who expressed that need, and then what are the proof points that support that. So we did a little bit of that, and the positioning statement, the goals here, you have a lot more in depth for those needs in particular. You can imagine how for the buyer you have a messaging document of 1 page for the college student. You might have 1 page for the families that are just relocating, and 1 page for the high school student who wants to get their first bank account. Each one of those 3 messaging documents is going to be hopefully based on research, is going to be focusing the company on those 3 types of buyers. Maybe you will have the persona in this messaging document as well. We'll get everybody aligned on what kind of customers we're going after, who are those customers, what they think, what needs they have, and how do we sell to them. So think about this as the end result of all the work you've done in the past that is going to get everybody in the company aligned in the same marketing strategy. And that's an extremely powerful thing. So what happens is that once you've done that, you create this document and you hand it out to all the other teams that are executing, and you don't need to worry or spend time doing work on the website and the collateral and the advertising and so on over and over and over again. Just like with other things, and we've described in this lesson, and it's kind of something you see commonly in product marketing, if you spend time at the beginning and do your homework, it's going to be more work at the beginning. You're going to need people to be patient, but the end result is going to be better. It's going to be not only more powerful, it's going to be more consistent and more concise, and it's going to be more effective. It's going to save people time down the road. So this shows you kind of the train of activities. You do market research to understand your customers, which informs your strategy, which then helps you narrow down a set of target customers. You build the positioning for each one of those target customers, and you put that into a messaging document to go after them. It becomes something beautiful. And that's the end of our lesson. So additional resources, this book, Positioning Battle for Your Mind, from All Rise and Jack Trout that I mentioned, Made to Stick from Chip and Dan Heath. It's a wonderful book about writing concise messaging that is meaningful to customers and how to make those messages relevant and messages that people remember. And then Your Attention Please. It's a book that's probably the least famous of those 3 by far, but it's one that I really like because it focuses on how to write copy that is really attention grabbing and how to write in a way that is simple and down to earth. Your assignment for this lesson is to write a new 1-page messaging framework for your product or service. And you can upload to the forum, and I'll happy to review and comment on it. As with the past lessons, we're not going to grade. The homework is not required, so this is only to help you if you think this is something that's useful for you. And with that, I want to thank you again for your time, and I hope this lesson was useful. I look forward to the discussion and to the next and last lesson, lesson 4. This is Gerardo Dada. Here's again my Twitter handle and my blog address in case you want to check them out. Have a great day. Thank you.